want to welcome everybody to our speaker series, our FPSU speaker series, focusing on all things election 2020. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Amendment 3 on the 2020 ballot in Florida. And I'd like to introduce our guest, Ms. Maya Brown, who is a strategist, organizer, advocate. She spent the past 6 years electing progressive Democrats to offices up and down the ballot, helping nonprofit organizations grow and developing and advocating for policy to reform the quality of life and criminal justice issues. Sounds like you're right up our alley, Maya. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for coming.
Aaron, thanks so much for having me. I am a longtime friend of SEIU. The work that you all do to support Florida's hardworking families is something that's near and dear to my heart. And so I'm so proud to share space with you tonight to talk about Amendment 3.
Thanks so much. Well, I guess we could jump right into it.
Good.
You know, I was looking into Amendment 3 a little earlier this week, and you know, I read it and it sounded like open primaries, which everybody's been asking for a long time. But I get the feeling I might have been duped here. Do you, can you kind of give us an overview of what Amendment 3 actually does? Yeah.
Aaron, and I think you're right. I think folks who read this amendment are going to have the same feeling. They're going to think because of, you know, really kind of on both sides, especially for Democrats and progressives, giving additional access to democracy, right, is what we want. But if folks read really what Amendment 3 is, they're going to see how problematic its implementation and its impact can be. Amendment 3 is going to be on the November general election ballot. And the ballot language, kind of the title is all voters vote in primary elections for state legislature, governor, and cabinet. So meaning that the primary is open. And so in such a way that literally the general election electorate can vote in the primary, and then the top 2 vote getters go on in a kind of runoff fashion to the general election, right? And so it's not that, and this is where it gets a little bit misleading, it's not that, you know, MPAs can vote in Democratic primaries and still Democrats can choose who their nominee is going to be. No, it's everyone voting, and Democrats, whoever files, can compete against Republicans in the primary, and then whoever is the top 2 in terms of getting votes go on to a general election runoff and basically have to do this election again. And again, I want folks to know, you know, that this is something that's going to impact not just the governor's races and the kind of 4 statewide offices, it also impacts state legislative seats, right? So state house and state senate. And so when we think about minority access seats, you know, this is something that is a big flag, because sometimes a lot of those minority access seats that we know are usually kind of won and lost in the primary election, whether they're closed or open. And so we have to really think about how that impacts, this amendment can impact some of that representation there.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting point. So you're saying it's really only those top 2 candidates that will be able to go to the general.
That's right.
Right. Okay. And so how, you know, at Florida Public Services Union, we represent a lot of working class people, a lot of minority people, and we'd like to know, you know, how does this stand to affect their ability to have self-representation in their communities?
That's right. And, you know, SEIU and our other like sister groups across the state have worked and fought so hard to move the needle towards progress in terms of representation of everyday folks in Florida. And this can really roll back the progress that we've made. And let's kind of go a little bit deeper in the example of about minority representation, right? And minority access seats. Thinking about state legislative representation, we've seen, I think it was almost 20 folks who won their primary elections across the state of Florida in these kind of minority access seats with Black candidates. And if this were to happen, right, let me give you an example of State Senator Audrey Gibson, right, in Senate District 6. If you take a look at her district, in the primary, in the Democratic primary, is 70% African American. if you think about the general election electorate, that drops down to 43%. It doesn't even make the 50% threshold anymore for representation. And so this amendment makes way for not only just kind of making it difficult for Black or Brown candidates to make it through the primary, it also makes it difficult for progressives as well, right? And folks who share our ideas to move out of these kind of Democratic primary spaces, because there's a more moderate general